Sometimes you need to shoot and ask questions later.
I'm not a gun owner.
Why not?
I'm afraid of them. It's a bad decision that I would make, like with police officers.
Yeah.
I have all the respect. It's a dangerous job, and you've got to make a split-second decision.
Well,
and maybe you're having a bad day. I'm not so sure I would be able to process the information that well.
I think you're panicking for no reason. I mean, that's why you want to have a good relationship with your local police.
And you'll do those ride-alongs.
Oh, I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. I'm an honorary Indian Hill Ranger.
It's not a very dangerous part of town. So why did you?
You don't
nothing
know.
against Indian
You
Hill.
may think that, but
I mean, what happens
there's
in
trouble
Indian Hill?
everywhere.
I can't remember
What
the last
happens
time.
in Indian Hill stays in Indian Hill.
So you hang around with the Rangers a lot. I mean, what do you do?
I
There are
go-
no bars. There are no businesses in. Well, I mean,
Not that you know of. There are private clubs, very private. So I go on these ride-alongs, and I always like to. I don't tell the officer, but I carry heat. Yeah, I always do.
What?
citizen ride-along where you can join a police officer out on patrol and see how they do their job.
Well, yeah, that's where it ends for most people. But I like to get a little more involved in that.
30 seconds.
I was riding along with Ranger O'Casey. I said, can we pull over at the King Quick here? And I'd like to get a Coke. He said, sure. He lets me out. And just as I'm going in there, I see an elderly gentleman. Looks to me like he's purloining a beverage, putting it inside his jacket. I couldn't see for sure, but that's what it looked like. And I thought, well, here's a chance for me to put into practice what I've learned on these ride-alongs. And I confronted the man, the suspect, the perp, as we call him in the police world. And I said, stop, and I'll shoot.
Stop, or I'll shoot? Is that what you meant?
No, I meant stop, because a moving target is very hard to hit. If they stop, you can really draw down on them and plug them one, a good one.
What kind of a weapon were you carrying?
38. And a snub nose. That's another reason, because you don't have a lot of control with the accuracy because the barrel's very short.
Well, I don't know. I've never fired one.
Everyone in the store could hear, stop, and I'll shoot. And so he stopped. He could sense that my hackles were raising. And
you got his attention.
Got his attention, and quick as a wink, I plugged him. It was a really tight pattern, and he fell like a burning turkey.
How old is this guy?
Later turned out he was 82.
So there was really no physical threat, it sounds like. I mean, you startled him. But
well, you don't know with these perps if there's going to be a physical threat or not. You do not know. It's my life or his. And
you had to make that choice in a split second, like the police.
Just like any police all over America have to do. He survived.
So it didn't sound like you were very upset.
No.
Because I think I would have been a little bit rattled by this, that I would have. How could I possibly have made a mistake like this?
You're assuming it was a mistake. I mean, this man was in the process of apparently committing a crime against the community.
A process of apparently
committing a crime. This is not a court with a jury and a judge. You have to act quickly. That's the thing, is acting quickly. Don't overthink it. Just pull it out and fire. That's what I did.
A man in his early 80s would have a weapon on him.
He had a toenail clipper. I went through his pockets. Fortunately, I had, before O'Casey came in, I had a second gun I put in his pocket. Now, don't be saying anything about that. He did survive, but he's in Lucasville now.
And they investigated. They said, well, as it turned out.
See this certificate I got and this badge. They gave me an honorary Ranger badge.
If I were you, I would feel somewhat guilty, a little bit
Well,
sad.
you're not me, are you? I feel no guilt. I feel no responsibility. Look, man, this is Indian Hill we're talking about, okay? It's not Westweed.
And you shouldn't worry.
I'm not.
Since the last barbecue.
The date has been burned in my mind. June 5th, 1999.
Since that last show.
That was the happiest day of my life.
People have passed on. And one of the people that passed on was Bud Wecker, your dad.
My dad, yeah.
You were telling him a story about one of your indiscretions of youth.
Well, you can call it an indiscretion, but it was a flambeau. I was, I don't want to call it dating, but I was seeing a young woman who happened to be a farmer's daughter. I see your eyebrow arching there. You're recalling some sort of a filthy joke, no doubt.
Well, I just recall how tragically it all turned out.
Well,
but
you can say it was tragic. I thought it was kind of funny myself. Her father was a turkey farmer. He had 1,000 head of turkey, and she and I were having a dalliance in the barn, just loaded with straw and hay. Just had the first cut of the season.
This is June 20th. 1998.
I think we gotta work in your OCD.
And I want to celebrate Bud Wecker by playing this Backyard BBQ Reflux from June 20th of 1998.
We're coming up on Father's Day, and just recently I purchased some from my father, and I gave it to him as far as, here you go, Dad. It's from a son to a father. It's a loving sort of gesture. Here you go. Have a good time.
Your father is about 78, 79 years old, isn't he?
Yeah, and his eyes lit up, and he was just delighted, and I felt good about it. Now, I didn't know that you aren't supposed to take Viagra in conjunction with heart medication.
You gave your father Viagra.
Yeah, well, however you pronounce it, Viagra. And I gave him some. I gave him, I guess, a half a dozen of these. And I said, take them one at a time. And, of course, he didn't. I took them all at once.
He overdosed on Viagra.
Well, I didn't know that, as I say, that you don't take this in conjunction with heart medication. That wasn't information I had, so it wasn't information I could pass along to him.
But that was such a traumatic time for him. How do you forget that kind of thing?
It slipped my mind, that's all. So
you're a journalist. You should know. The truth
I'm also a human being, fallible, capable of forgetting things. It had just slipped my mind, nor did I know that you don't take this this in conjunction with heart medication. So I didn't know that. I accept no responsibility. Excusez-moi. At any rate, he was bouncing off the walls, evidently, my mother told me at the hospital. And there was an implosion or an explosion. She described it sort of a sound of a water balloon being dropped from about 50 feet, hitting a pavement below, a hard surface, and sort of a wet, splashy kind of explosion.
What, his chest?
I guess it was. And at any rate, ironically, the funeral will be tomorrow. But
well, that's very kind of you to be here for the Backyard Barbecue while you're in mourning.
Yeah,
that explains the black T-shirt and black khakis.
He lived a full life. I think I brought a lot of joy into his life.
You shouldn't feel responsible.
I don't. I don't.
I sense that maybe you.
But there were many, and as I reflect on that, I think of many more, and one particular memory comes to surface.
Go ahead. This is going to help. It's going to be cathartic for you because we can share stories about our fathers. Go ahead.
All right. I was going to. You didn't need to invite me to. This was when I was younger. I was maybe 18, and my father was looking for a summer job for me. And down the street, down the road, in the country lane where I grew up, there was a man who owned a turkey farm, a deaf-mute individual who my father had befriended and had provided some financial assistance to.
Never had the joy of hearing a turkey gobble.
No, he didn't, and nor was he able to issue verbal commands to his turkeys, but he had thousands of them. He also had a very attractive daughter with whom I enjoyed more than one dalliance in the turkey barn. And I was just learning to smoke then. I was smoking larks. And after one such dalliance, I pulled out a lark and lit one for her and one for myself, and we enjoyed that. We enjoyed that moment. And at the conclusion of my cigarette, I carelessly flicked it aside, not really paying attention to where it landed. And it landed, wouldn't you know it, in a sort of a haystack that he had there. Why he had hay for his turkeys, I don't know. I think he used it for bedding. At any rate,
extremely flammable.
I had no idea. This thing went up like a torch, and within minutes, I got out of there. But the place became a raging inferno, this barn, and the turkeys were ignited. Thousands of turkeys. It was,
how
awful. Well, in a way, but there was a beauty to it.
How so?
Well, these turkeys were like giant lightning bugs, and it was a summer evening. It was a beautiful evening. And here were all these turkeys running in every possible direction, running frantically. I mean, there was a drama to this moment.
Yeah, running as if
terrified, running as if they were heading in towards some destination where they would receive assistance or help. Of course, there was none. And I stood there just marveling.
I don't know if they would have the intellectual capacity to want to seek out help. Perhaps they were running because of the natural reaction to wanting to just flee.
It was complete, utter, abject terror. I could see this in their eyes. It was etched on their beaks.
Yeah.
And I was touched, too, by the loyalty of perhaps a dozen turkeys that ran directly, without knowing it, I'm sure, into the farmer's abode. And I'll never forget. It was kind of comical, really. The house, it was an old frame house, and it went up like a matchstick. And the enduring image to me was of the farmer on the second floor window throwing up his head sticking out of the window.
Uh-huh.
And the flames lapping at the frame of the window all around him. He's framed in this a rectangle of fire, and his hair was on fire, and his mouth was open. And being a deaf mute, he was not able to make any sound, but I could tell that if he could, he would have screamed.
Sure, because the turkeys, they were unable to receive any assistance.
Nor were they able to administer.
And wasn't it ironic, that their owner was not able to do that as well? The irony was not lost on you.
There was irony, there was the dramatic irony, but there was a comical aspect, as I say, because his mouth was wide open as if he was screaming, but of course, being a deaf mute, no sound came out.
And of course, the fire department arrived, they put the fire out, everything turned out okay,
right?
It's
fine. I do regret that, someone was seriously injured.
And a lot of turkeys also.
Well, sure, the turkeys were seriously injured.
And the poor guy, when was he able to get back to work? I mean, did the insurance cover it all?
He was very seriously injured. He died.
Doggone it! I mean,
don't look at me like that.
Did the insurance help out the family?
No, they had no insurance.
And he had no family.
His daughter, who then at that point had no income whatsoever. Last I heard, she took a bus to L.A., and I don't know what she's doing there now. I've not heard from her. But I see how you're looking at me as if I somehow am to blame, but I accept no responsibility. People die. I mean, pick up the paper. People die all the time from all kinds of causes.
Don't live with that guilt.
I don't.
You can't.
Well, no.
It's impossible to.
I don't know.
Don't do it.
I don't.
You refuse to. Well, it's clear that you're able to do that.
Yeah, sure. I put it behind me. But I look back.
I admire that because I might carry that for the rest of my life.
The whole point of it was afterwards my father came, and he was concerned that I'd be a little upset, emotionally distraught, which of course I wasn't. And we went down to Nell's Coffee House, and we had a cup of coffee, and I gave him one of my larks. We both had a lark. We smoked a lark. And we just tossed our heads back and had a good laugh. And it was just one of those moments that I won't forget.
Father's Day weekend, the Backyard BBQ, starring David Wecker and Matt Reis.